All right, it is May 11th, 2022. I can't believe that college is almost over. School is almost out. We're heading into summer. It is a beautiful day in Austin, Texas. It is 88 degrees, a little hot, but I understand that the weather is just what it should be. It's maybe a little overcast. I'm still celebrating my Jayhawks winning the national championship in basketball. And we have a great guest today. And so for those of you who are tuning in, as I see you're coming on, hang tight. We're going to start with some music from our own Dr. John Sibley Butler.
I was down in New Orleans having a little gumbo on the Delta Queen when someone said, "Have you heard the news? There's a quarterback coming from Ohio this day to bond with LSU, and I heard he could play." He said he was looking for a brand new football day. You know, Coach O trying to make them Tigers great. You know, he always looking for a little tiger bait. Go with his habu dang, a little koosh say bar. The Tigers are from that big bad SEC, and I knew it well. That's where I grew up and learned to be. I'm on Joe Barrow enjoying this Tiger show with me. How you doing, Andres?
Right, all right. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you. How is it going? The semester is almost over. What's the recap? What's the summary of the school year?
Everything's doing well. I think that, you know, all of the juniors were acting like freshmen because it was their first time being in class. I think there's still a lot of anxiety about masks and as people cough in class. And I also think that we're not sure if we're out of the pandemic yet, but it's very interesting. I have been doing a lot of recruiting for the Texas Longhorns and Sarkeesian. I've met with all of the parents from every class, and I've been watching the television about what's going on in Europe, which is getting sadder. It's getting sadder. I look at all of the stock market. It's pretty interesting as it goes up and down. I look at the interest rates. I look at inflation. People have gone from talking about one thing to talking about inflation now. But it's a wonderful day in Austin, Texas, and I'm full of gumbo. We had our LSU gumbo party last Friday night here in LSU. So I'm saying all this for Bob. I understand that he's a fellow Tiger. That's what the song was in reference to him. So I'm doing all right, Andres.
Excellent. Llewellyn King, sir, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm in Washington, D.C. I've been here since Sunday, and it's beautiful weather. It seems actually since I came in after being out this morning to have clouded a little, but yesterday was a blessedly beautiful day, and certainly this morning was. That's about the end of beautiful things in Washington. Everything else is jangled. I've never known a time when our politics was so jangled or people were so jangled about it. So we live in interesting times, but I'm told it's a Chinese curse. I thought it was a curse developed by John Sibley Butler for dealing with me.
You know, I'm trying. I read your columns. They're outstanding. Keep writing.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. That's high praise. Thank you. That
Absolutely
won't save
wonderful.
you. That won't save you, but it's high praise. Thank you.
Well, you know, I'm just trying.
I find you very trying.
Let me say hello to our guest speaker, Bob Champagne. Bob, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and I'm actually enjoying this group today. This is Andres. You never cease to amaze me in terms of the eclectic and diverse set of topics you put together, and the diverse audiences, and this panel, it never ceases to amaze me. I've listened to you guys for a long time, but can't wait.
Yeah. Well, we're excited that you're here. For those of watching and listening that don't know Bob Bob is the Vice President of Customer Experience Innovation at Smart Energy Water. He's going to be with us for the hour. Prior to SEW for short, Bob was Executive Advisor at Grid4C, VP of Digital Strategy and Innovation at TMG Consulting, SVP of Strategy and Market Development and Chief Marketing Officer at Innowatts, President and Managing Partner at One Vector Consulting, and VP of Energy and Utilities at UMS Group, among many others. Bob holds a BS in Business Administration at Louisiana State University.
This sentence
And has a certificate in finance from New Orleans University. Welcome, Bob.
Well, thank you.
Well, Bob, you travel the world. Your company is a global company. Your founder is an Indian-born person who has become a very famous technologist. And you guys' company has been making significant inroads in helping all kinds of utilities do a better job. Couple of questions. I assume that COVID has helped the acceleration of digitalization of your customers towards more of what you sell. Please corroborate that or not. And anything that you guys have done to mitigate COVID. And then any thoughts on the economy in 2022 in North America for your business?
Sure, that's a lot to unpack. Let me just give, just for those of you who don't know SEW, let me just give a thumbnail of what it is we do. So we are a global technology company. We've been around for 10 years. Our technology platform is designed to help utilities engage with their customers and deliver a customer and workforce experience that really is. I know we all have probably gotten tired of the references to Uber, but it is truly an Uber-like experience, and it makes us quite unique. I operate in 37 countries, about 355 utility clients, and we're touching now over 1 billion people worldwide. So the reach is extensive. If you've ever digitally engaged with your utility through self-service, whether you're paying your bill electronically or you're reporting an outage, it's highly likely that you've engaged with our SEW's platform. If you look on the App Store, we're the #1 rated utility app. So if you were to look at, for example, San Diego, everybody as big as San Diego Gas and Electric and Duke, all the way down to some of the smallest co-ops and municipalities, we're the engine behind. Smart Energy Systems is the engine behind their digital engagement solution. If I think about your question, I think about and COVID in particular. I wouldn't say we've done anything to alleviate COVID. We're not a vaccine manufacturer but when you think about how people engaged with their utilities during COVID and how they engaged with any utility during COVID, we saw some pretty dramatic changes, right? I was also going to say before I even got into this that I'm honored and excited to finally, after probably 4 or 5 years, to not be the oldest guy in the room and be able to articulate that I'm the youngest guy in this room, I think. So I appreciate that.
That won't endure you to us.
Oh, thank you for welcoming me. Either way, I look at 2 examples during COVID. My neighbor and my father-in-law, both of them in their 90s. I would never have thought before COVID that I would ever see a grocery delivery van approaching my neighbor's house which meant she had to go online and actually place an order. There's certain things like that that would never have happened before COVID, and they would have never had that experience. I look at my father-in-law who is on auto pay for his utility in Louisiana. He actually may be interesting to you, Andres. He actually drives his second EV. He's now driving a Chevy Bolt. He drove the BMW EV before. And this is in an environment that doesn't have, as John knows, a wide, extensive network of public charging, right? So here I am looking at these two individuals who are in their 90s, who I respect greatly, engaging with customers as I do when I'm in an airport getting an Uber, right? So one of the things I'm really excited about what we've done is we've created what is really a frictionless way for customers of any age, any demographic, whatever they're doing with their utility, to engage in the same manner as they would if they were hailing an Uber. And I think we've done it in a way that is, I had a client of mine back, and the other thing I'm excited about is I actually get to use anecdotes and examples from the 90s, and you guys won't hold it against me. I had a client of mine more than a few decades ago when I was consulting with the organization and helping them define their CX, their customer experience platform and approach and vision and transformation. I asked her, I said, well, before we get started on the project, can you tell me a little bit about what customer experience means to you? Was a CCO, Chief Customer Officer of Arizona Public Service. You may know her, Andres. And she said, without hesitation, she said it's three things, Bob. She said it's that we want to be easy to do business with. We want to be friendly and helpful in providing the response to what customers need. And we want to provide smart value, that unexpected source of value, which we can unpack that as we go farther today. But and John would refer to that third piece as lagniappe, right, John? But I can say honestly, Andres, that the way we approach CX today, with all the digital elements to it, and while it looks different technologically, I've really held dear for the majority of the 35 years of my career to that kind of principle, that this is about, how can we take the friction out of the experience? If a customer's connecting service, they should be able to do it in 2 minutes. They should be able to upload their documents like you upload your travel documents when you're traveling internationally now post-COVID, right? You should be able to, if you have a service request, you should see the driver of the utility crew coming to your house like you would see the Uber driver coming to your house. You should be able to get instant information on whether you're eligible for a payment extension program. If you're a low-income customer, you're having trouble paying your bill, right? So there's so many ways we can operate like our non-utility counterparts, and digitalization has just made that so much easier. I'm not sure I'm answering your question, so I'll kind of pause there. And
what about the forecast for 2022? Is business up, down, sideways in the United States? What's going on in the US?
In terms of, sorry?
Your business and the economy.
Oh, I mean, by any measure, we were about last year at this time, we measure, one of our metrics is how many customers are we touching with our platform, right? So if you're touching a utility, you're touching, you're certainly touching the customer, but you're touching really everybody in that household potentially through different channels and different means of engaging. And so last year, this time we were probably around 900 million, and now we're about 1.2 million. So you can look at that growth in and of itself. In terms of product development.
So real quick, 900,000 to 1.2 million, right?
No. 900 million to 1.2 billion. We're touching more than 1/7 the planet through our platforms, and it's literally small utilities that have 5,000 customers all the way up to.
What about the U.S.?
100 million customer utilities in India. Sorry.
What about the U.S.?
Numbers in the U.S. I don't have on the top of my tip of my tongue, but it's almost all of the large utilities. It's the Dukes, the San Diegos.
But it's growing. It's growing. The question is it growing?
Yeah. In the U.S.,
growing.
Absolutely, in the U.S. it's growing, and just related to the economic issues, we're like everybody having, probably the biggest challenge we have is continuing to hire for our growth. And I think that's affecting everybody. My wife was telling me this morning in her profession, it seems like the Great Resignation has ended, but we can't hire fast enough. And we're putting a lot of investment in it. I heard last week at CS Week, lots of the larger, more established technology companies are suffering with attrition. They're putting huge bonuses in place to keep their people around. It's not for us. It's not as much about retention as much as we're doing a really good job with that. But I think acquiring and growing has become the mandate for us.
Johnny?
Yeah, Bob, I did go on your webpage and I looked at all of let's call it the Internet of Things for for water utility and electric utility. And one of the things that was interesting to me was drought prediction and the movement of water. So let me give you a scenario. So sometimes we have droughts in Texas, and Louisiana has lots of waters, for example. And we might be wanting to put a pipeline from South Louisiana to Texas, but we had to go through every little county. My question to you is, I've got two questions. One is in terms of your predictability for the needs of water, whether it's drought or too much water. And the other one is your basic business model. That is how revenue come in. Are you paid by the utilities? Are you paid by the users themselves? Because I looked at everything and I found it very, very interesting in the sense that everything was digitized and we know where every piece of water can be. So how do you answer that in terms of the drought prediction and those kind of earthly things?
So it's a good question. I'm glad you kind of took us back to water for a second. Again, I'm not sure that I would characterize the predictions that we do would be, at a macro level, although we certainly do get there through a different means. Keep in mind that what we do is directly for utilities. So we sell, is kind of to your second question, but we sell directly to utilities. They are our clients. They are providing a solution on behalf of the customers. Now, part of that solution when it comes to digitally engaging customers is providing information about their usage, right? And so when we, just like on the electricity side, when a customer looks at their bill, sure, they want to know the dollar amount, but they want to know what's really driving it throughout the course of their month or their year. Are they above or below their neighbors, right? They want some information on what's driving their energy, water, or gas bill. And so what that's allowed us to do is by looking at and exploring and providing intelligence into those usage patterns. And Andres knows from my past life, we did a lot of predictions, right? We're able to understand the drivers and predict usage. We're able to look at anomalies Like we can in California, where we have real drought problems, there's mandates and fines associated with violating certain usage restrictions. And so we routinely in our platform will identify when those anomalies have occurred. We'll allow the utility or in an automated way send the customer notifications and nudges. In some cases, it requires somebody to come out and actually, serve them with a notice that they're way in a violation stage. But I think to your point, can customer data help predict things at a macro level? And the short answer to that is absolutely. And again, back to maybe when I first ran into Andres, it was with a company I was working with that did smart meter analytics, and the expertise of that company was load forecasting. And we were so good at predicting what a customer's usage pattern was at a premise level that we were able to easily blend it with macroeconomic factors that allowed us to develop forecasts for certain circuits and then ultimately forecasts for certain markets. And so there was some healthy conversation a few years ago during the Texas storm where we said, how much better would we have been than ERCOT at forecasting some of the requirements? Would this have solved the winter storm crisis? Well, no, we wouldn't have solved the winter storm crisis, but we would have provided a lot of intelligence on where those pockets of constraints were going to be, and some nudges to customers perhaps in advance or during that process. So certainly an opportunity to use the customer intelligence that we gather to forecast bigger and bolder or solving bigger and bolder challenges at the macro.
Yeah, absolutely. And bring them together, energy, water, gas. I found that on the website very interesting for the data capabilities. And do you see it, do you see your business model spreading as the utility industry become more digital? Because it's not all digital now. You might be digital, but
No.
the grid and et cetera, we have a long way to go to digitize. So how do you see the digitalization or the modernization, if you will, of the grid helping your business?
Yeah, so another great question. I think when it comes to digitalization, maybe I'll even go back to, so I started my career in '87 with Entergy, right? So more local coincidences. But when I started my career, there were several silos in the utility. There was the customer service and account management silo, for lack of a better term. There was the distribution grid silo. There was the transmission business, and at Entergy we still had generation. I think they still do. So you typically found that what was innovation in one of those silos didn't always cross over into the other. I think the difference today is that it's hard for one silo to not participate in that wave or that trend. And I'll give you an example. So when it comes to something like what we call distributed energy resource management in the utility world, right? We have intelligence, consumption intelligence that drives the ability or the optionality of a customer to make different decisions when they're using on peak, when they're using not on peak. There's the energy efficiency space where you have customers enrolling in certain programs or putting smart thermostats in, customers putting EVs in, right? It's a great example. All the stuff on the customer side, but you can't do that any longer in isolation with the grid. You put you put 10 EVs on a circuit that has constraints, you're in trouble, right? You start paying customers to shift load, and you're doing it on a feeder that might not be able to handle those kinds of fluctuations. Or, it's the grid and the customer are integrated, to a point where you can't view one without the other.
Right.
And so I think the digitization of the enterprise is happening more quickly than maybe we might have envisioned only a few years ago. And it's being done in a way that can orchestrate some of these processes across the utility. Now, I still think we have some challenges in markets like Texas or markets like California, where generation is its own piece and distribution is its own piece. And in Texas, you've got how many hundreds of retailers, and in California, you've got community choice. Up in New Hampshire, you've got community choice emerging now. And the more you fragment those pieces, the harder it's going to be to get to a perfectly optimized solution. So I think that, to me, I think when it comes to digital challenges moving forward, maybe it's even a structural challenge as an industry, the benefits of all these great things that we're doing is fragmented across so many pieces and parts that it's hard. It gets harder to make the value proposition, if that makes sense. So,
Llewellyn?
Yes, Bob. I wonder if you could explain to me as tersely as possible what your primary product is. What is it when you go to call on a customer that you're selling to that customer?
So the way the average person would see our product is when they pick up their app on their phone, right? They pick up their app on their phone and they log into their utility. They log into that app. They see their bill. They see their usage. That's us. That's our app that we're providing. So you could think about what the customer sees as an app or the website they go to, where it's our technology, but it's the utility brand, right?
So that applies to electric utilities and water utilities.
And gas utilities, correct.
And gas.
And
so that you're a sort of modifier or a collector and deliverer of information to the customer from the other customer.
Yes.
The utility.
Yes, and the other side of that, the less visible side of it, Llewellyn, is that behind the scenes there's an engine by which we orchestrate the customer experience across different channels. And what do I mean by that? So I can tell from your usage profile, if say you're a smart metered customer, I can tell that you use energy in a certain way, that you may have more or less flexibility during certain peak periods. And so because I know that, automatically I can nudge you to certain products and programs and services that are offered by the utility that are relevant to you. But I'm not gonna orchestrate that same set of solutions to Andres, because his load profile might be different and John's might be different. So there's a host of there's a heavy lift behind the scenes in terms of orchestrating the data to be able to personalize the experience so much for a particular customer that it's highly relevant, meaningful, and engaging for them. So people always ask us, how do you get such high levels of engagement? You go to any of the apps I mentioned on the App Store that use our platform, San Diego Gas and Electric being one. You go to the App Store, you'll see 5-star ratings, and you'll see 19, 20,000 ratings, right? So what's causing customers to engage at that level? Because you can go to many utilities and it's 100 ratings and 2 stars. And I think it's because we don't engage with customers in an irrelevant or meaningless way, right? If the customer wants to get a notification or a phone call, that's their channel of that's their preference, then that's how they're going to get engaged with us. They're not going to get engaged with us in a one size fits all way. So, but primarily to answer your question, it's the app, the website, and the orchestration engine that sits beneath those two.
If a customer, for argument's sake, if a customer has 100,000 meters, big utility, what percentage of those would you expect to use your app?
For whatever transaction we're talking about, some people will only use the app to set up an auto pay arrangement and may never use the app again because people don't like to engage with their utility, and we don't want them to engage with their utility if it's not relevant and meaningful to them. But we've seen it as high as 40 to 50% of customers now engaging through self-service means with their utility, if not higher. It's completely.
That's very interesting, because in my quite long experience with the utility industry, the utilities have talked engagement, and the public has shown a surprising disinterest, except to complain about the size of the bill.
Right.
I was, though, just today talking to somebody who's not directly but indirectly involved in simplifying electric utility bills, which was long overdue and something which I remember advocating in articles I wrote in the Energy Daily back in the 1970s, because nobody could understand the bill. And from my point of view, and I've never engaged with that app or very few apps, I'm not really that sort of person, but I do find the bill that shows how much I used in relation to my neighbors curiously interesting.
Yeah,
I don't actually take any action as a result of it.
exactly.
I find it curiously interesting.
Well, you point to some excellent, some really important points there. So first off, and I'll use another 1990s anecdote here. Back in I guess it was the early 2000s, there was a study published, I think it was by Accenture, that said utility customers only engage with their utility, I believe it was 6 minutes a year. And I was surrounded by clients, chief customer officers of utilities, that would pound the desk and tell their staffs, see, we've got to engage more with our customers. We need to get it up to 9 minutes, to 12 minutes, to 15 minutes. And I always thought that was curious because I am of the opinion customers do not want to engage with their utility at all, right? And when they do, it's usually because of a problem or a frustration. So they call the call center, and call center's got 300 bodies sitting in chairs answering calls from unhappy customers. So can we find a way to eliminate the work? Can we find a way to stop the problems from occurring, or stop the unhappy journeys from occurring? And so a great example of this was Hurricane Sandy, which I lived through, and our power went out in New Jersey, and we were without for probably 3 or 4 days until the point where I said, I'm going to call the call center. I'm kind of the person that doesn't like calling call centers, because I know the work they're under and I know the stress they're under, and I've worked around them for so long. But we didn't know whether we should leave or stay. Leave or stay. And so I called the utility, and the operator, or the rep takes the call after probably an hour hold time and says, look, it's going to be 7 to 10 days. And I said, well, can you give me some indication on progress or whatever? She goes, no, all I got is 7 to 10 days. So hung up, waited another couple of days, tried to call back, 7 to 10 days. Third time I called, about a week later, there was an automated recording that answered the phone that says, we know you're out, it'll be 7 to 10 days. So they've basically automated a very shallow body of intelligence. They've automated a bad experience. And my son came to me and said, hey, Dad, I was on Twitter and I actually saw hashtag Madison, New Jersey, hashtag Florham Park, truck spotted. That gave me more confidence in the fact that I now had a status from my son following Twitter that I couldn't get from my utility, right? So the takeaway for all that of all that for me is, you know, we've got to, as utilities, get very creative. We've got to be smart about what we're automating, what we're engaging with customers on. How are we creating that source of smart value that a customer can look back on and say, you've really changed my experience. In the end, I don't think we want to engage more. I think we want to engage smarter with our customers.
So quick, go ahead, Johnny, you had something.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And remember, all enterprises are doing this. I mean, in the sense that customization, I can customize my golf balls now. I can customize my shirts now. But I think that the interaction will increase as the customer themselves can also get some return on their money-wise for not doing this load and not doing that load, and see how the bill can go up and down. That's what I think. But everybody's trying to digitize the customer. As a matter of fact, Andreas, we don't call them customers anymore. We call them digital partners.
There you go. There you go.
That's a big step up. That's a big step up from ratepayer, though, isn't it?
It is big step for ratepayer.
So Bob, I'm curious. I have a bunch of rapid fire questions, and then if you can give me rapid fire answers. So I would imagine, you know, I was at Austin Energy from 2003 to 2010, and in Austin Energy we had no online commerce, no online anything. It was just a call center and a lot of paid stations across the city. And within 4 years, we moved everything 99% to e-commerce and reduced dramatically the call center calls and all kinds of things. I would imagine that, you know, since the world is changing now, that the edge of the grid is changing dramatically. I got an EV, I got a solar panel, I got batteries, I got these things. So can you tell from the programs that you're running and the automation that you're running that the utilities are welcoming this complexity and needing to talk to their customers more and needing to dispatch trucks more? Is that happening already? Do you see that at all?
I don't think the nature of the requests, Andres, are changing that much yet. You know, the requests are still, you know, can I pay my bill, right? I need to pay my bill. I need to sign up for service. I need to report a power outage. It's the same basic stuff. Mm-hmm. The degree to which those activities are happening digitally has grown by leaps and bounds. So from that standpoint, I don't think the nature of the work is changing. I think the means by which the customer is accomplishing those tasks is
part of the benefit that you offer to the utility with your platform, the notion that the total cost of ownership of the transactions and the handling of that, the events using your platform versus the old-fashioned way is cheaper. And is that part of the return on investment in the business plan?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a task that's automated through a platform like that, the unit cost of delivering it goes down, but you know, more importantly, if you if you really give thought to the customer journey itself and how you get a customer from point A to point B, then you're going to do more than just automate a bad practice. You're actually going to take the workload out of the system completely. And so in the example I gave you before, and I haven't seen a utility kind of crowdsource their intelligence on outages yet, but it was an idea that percolated for me. And I said, you know, if you could bottle that and somehow get all that intelligence curated to where that's the source of, it would have taken a tremendous amount of calls out of the system. And we have clients, look, we have clients that will tell us, when we implemented your platform, 20-30% of the calls came out of the call center. So to say that there's not a big impact of, you know, on workload would be a mischaracterization, because we have had that.
Last quick question: Do you see the proliferation of devices at the edge of grid and in the water system controlled by the utility? For example, there's a great company called Sensor Industry that makes these sensors that go on the toilets for the water company. I think they're a home run kind of company. Do you see that proliferation and what delivers that, which is 5G or any telecommunication? Is that a plus or a minus? Are you guys driving that and helping the utility sort of reimagine their business processes?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you the biggest, the best example of that from something that we have recently launched. I don't know if you followed it, but we've launched a new wholly owned business, separate business, but wholly owned by SEW, called Smart E-Mobility. and the idea behind that business is to really help the customer leverage all parts of their EV journey. So what do utilities do today? Well, utilities help customers maybe get educated on their EV. They may help them through the buying experience. But where we see this going is the utility actually helping customers connect their charging devices, right? To get to install their chargers and get set up, but ultimately get it to a point where I'm not sending a notification to a customer telling them they're charging at a suboptimal time. I'm actually throttling up and throttling down the charging through a managed charging service plan. And so that's an example on the EV front. Certainly, we've seen the examples on the smart thermostat front for many years now. And the more connected devices we can have that are operating, I'd say automatically, but intelligently, powered by AI. The more you can do that, the more it's going to allow customers to push the, you want to automate the things that are going to happen. And then you want to leave the if there's complex activities that you need to still tackle, like a customer calls up and says, I know nobody around me is out of power, but my lights are flickering, and it's literally a diagnosis where you might have to send a troubleshooter. Then those calls may still come to the call center. We could probably find a way to do those much more efficiently if they embrace our platform. But it's the 80-20. It's the 80% of the simple stuff that we have the potential to digitize and completely eliminate.
Yeah. Well, Llewellyn?
Who are your competitors?
As a good technology and software company, we would say we have no competitors, but I won't say that. What I would say is our competitors, we have competitors for different pieces and modules, different parts of the customer experience. So sure, we have a payments engine, a payments business that essentially can dramatically lower cost of transactions, right? There are many companies that do that. We think we do it best, but there are other companies that might provide a mobile app, and there might be somebody else who provides a analytics service, some of which Andres and I know well, right? What I think is unique about us is that the orchestration engine, how we bring those pieces together inside of a unified customer experience, is really our differentiator. And for that, I don't believe there are any
So-
many competitors.
So,
in
so
that.
real quick, the top two software platforms are Oracle and SAP. I take it that you integrate with them easily and smoothly.
Yeah, in fact, if you look in one of those cases, and in the case of SAP, if an SAP client, when they implement the CIS, says we want self-service, right, capabilities, their SAP is implementing our platform, right, under their self-service accelerator. So there are many clients of ours that are our clients because they've implemented SAP.
Llewellyn?
How do you charge the utility? Is it on a per app or per use of an app or a flat fee?
It's a software as a service business model. So it's like any cloud subscription. They're paying on a to set up the platform, and then they're paying on an ongoing basis. Most typically on a per customer basis, but there's dozens of pricing models that we work with the utility to find out what is going to work best with them. If they're in a mode where they've thought for years in an on-prem context, then we'll work with them to try to align in a pricing model that suits that. Our goal is to get our platform exposed to as many citizens, and we didn't get a chance to talk much about this, but we are all about citizen level engagement, right?
Yep. All right, let me switch to Johnny. Johnny?
And what's interesting, Bob, in listening to you and your algorithm, and I was wondering, were they learning algorithms? In my work, I work with a lot of companies where they are just algorithms where they're smart. So I'm sure that your algorithms are learning. They're learning, as you said, about the customer experience, what the customers do when they turn the lights off and when they turn the lights on, and et cetera. So as you switch from platform to platform, are you aware of the different kinds of learning algorithms versus learning algorithms? And do you see that as a problem, or are you building on it?
If I'm understanding your question, when you said, I wasn't sure I understood when you said you go moving from one platform to another.
For example, as we move from one service platform to the other, they're going to have different kinds of signals, and some of them are learning algorithms, and some of them are just signals, right?
Yeah.
And my question was, from a mathematical point of view, I guess that's automated now, where they can interact with any kind of algorithms. Some algorithms are patented. And so because it's going to be, and the other thing, of course, as we all know, is that if we can do that, it can also be hacked. So I end by saying, what's your experience in the hacking that's going on in your industry? Or how do you guys look at that?
We've been fairly insulated from that. And I think that why exactly that is, I think, is probably a question for our I'll defer to our technologists and security teams for why they're so good at that. But I would say, just back to your machine learning and algorithmic questions, we work one of two ways, right? We have a body of embedded algorithms and IP that we've developed around the things that really matter. So, our ability to detect an appliance inside of your home based on just your smart meter data, right? Here's John's EV going on and off. Here's John's percentage of his load that's a water heater. Those learning algorithms, along with learning algorithms for what a customer behavior is going to do during a journey. Is the customer going to drop out of the call center and go here? All those learning algorithms a lot of those are embedded in our platform.
Okay.
But there are cases where, like the company Andres and I were affiliated with a few years back, where they bring a body of predictive intelligence to the table. And we will, through an API, consume that intelligence, and we will use it to augment what we have. If the utility doesn't want what we have and wants to use that algorithm, then we go down that path. So it's I call it a headless platform, which means there are a set of core modules that drive it, but the data is coming from everywhere, right? And we have to be flexible enough to not require a utility to use all of our systems of record or any of our systems of record. They're bringing their data. We're the orchestrator of the experience.
Yeah, Llewellyn?
Yeah, you said, I think that you're in 34 countries. And
37, I believe.
you have to tailor your product for each company, and is it, do you have to learn, do they have to be written in specific languages so the customers
Yeah, I mean, we
can
have.
understand what you're talking about?
That's exactly right. It's, people say to you, is your platform customized for every environment? And I say, no, it's really configured for multiple environments. So we have multi-language support, for example, and you're pointing to a very common issue when we go into a new market or a new country. There are also different ways that customers want to navigate through a journey, right? What customers are more in some markets, for example, like Texas, you call your retailer if there's a billing question, you call your local distribution company if there's an outage, right? In other markets, it's the same journey, right? So so the short answer is yes. It's configured for every market, but it's a very easy and fast configuration.
I'd like to,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
I'm trying to get a feel in my mind for how this works. Do you have a system of charging a utility on the usage by customers or simply the availability of the service?
Generally, it's what you're providing to a customer in terms of the overall suite. So a utility would say, if I want to have, if I want to have 1 million customers on my platform, and then I'm going to pay X. If they want to have 6 of the modules, so our modules would be things like notifications and usage intelligence and payments, right? So it's simply a matter of adding up the services they want to provide their customers, and then our cost to the utility would be the cost to service that customer. There are some things that are usage based or usage not as in electricity consumption, but usage as in usage levels of the service, that where we would charge, like text message, right? If the company was okay with just push notifying customers, right, on their app, then that would normally, most cases, be included in the product. But if the company wanted to say, I want to be able to send text messages to everybody, once a week for whatever reason, then we would pass on some of those costs to the utility.
Is there any way
Nothing to the customer, though.
Is there any way that the utility customer, in their moment of frustration, can actually speak to an individual?
Sure. I mean, we orchestrate the digital platform, but for the customer, if they ever want to go into the legacy channels if they ever want to go into and pay their bill in a physical bricks and mortar, that's really the decision of the utility. Do they want to offer it? Now, we'll provide, like we just started providing a cash-based kiosk that it can be scaled. And so again, John, you'd identify with this, in Entergy's service territory. It's not just big cities, it's little tiny cities who customers might want to pay in the local equivalent of a 7-Eleven, and we have the ability to plop a kiosk right in that location, and it's they pay cash, they get a barcode, they can scan it with their phone, reactivate. So it's a much different environment than it used to be.
So Bob, what about cryptocurrency? Are any utilities accepting Bitcoin or anything like that?
That's a great question, and I wish I had the answer for you. I don't. Our payments guy, who you can get on at a future point, can give you just an enormous amount of.
You think it is coming?
After this financial meltdown of Bitcoin, may be the only one that survives after all this is said and done, right? But yeah, I'm not gonna predict the speed with which cryptocurrencies become mainstream, but I certainly think they will at some point.
Yeah,
Well,
let me.
It doesn't make anything, it doesn't sit there and make anything. So
I'm not into it. Let me pause real quick, Johnny. Let me pause real quick for everybody. I have a great announcement to make, which is we have a final allocation for our Digital 360 Summit 2022. It's going to be at the JW Marriott downtown Austin, Texas, September 6th through the 9th. It's 4 days. The last day, the 9th, is a tour day where you will get bussed to all the labs that we're building at Texas State. And it's going to be a phenomenal event, probably some 400, 500 people. The Greatest Markers Partnership Innovation Summit is going to be also co-located with that event. And I want to remind everybody who sponsored and spoke and keynoted last year. And remind everybody of the work that we're doing at Texas State with the 9 living labs on 700 acres. We just got approval to move forward with our Smart Energy Utilities Lab in a solar PV farm of 60 megawatts and 20 megawatts with energy storage. And I want to thank Texas State for sponsoring the Digital Roundtable. Johnny?
Yeah, I think that this is very, very good, Bob. I'm really, really impressed because I think it's a futuristic kind of business model. And I think in terms of the technology that we'll develop, I think that this is in the future. I think right now you look back on what we do now and say, my gosh, that was good, but look what we're doing now.
Hey, John, I'm glad you mentioned that. And real quick, there was a client of ours that came to us right after COVID and said that they went live like a day before the shutdown. And they said, had it not been for this today, we would not have had an ability to engage with our customers during COVID. So while I agree with you, this is a future proofing of a business model. It's absolutely real-time today problems that I think we're solving for the utility.
Yeah.
And I think it's very, very interesting. And I think it goes across industry. But remember, since we have had our Texas snow down here, and remember, we called a snowstorm to run all the weak Texans out of here. That's why we had the snowstorm. but since we had the snowstorm, the whiteout, if you will, everybody understands the importance of ERCOT now. As I like to say on the program, before we just thought it was something you put in the refrigerator and take a bite of. We thought it was a fruit. Nobody had ever heard of, you have to look at the board, look at what things are doing. So I think it's very, very futuristic.
Yeah, Llewellyn?
I wonder what happens. Do you have an asymmetry if, say, 50% of the customer base signs up with your app and 50% doesn't? In that emergency, isn't there an asymmetry of the information going to the customers, where half the base is getting it from you and half the base is getting it off the television?
We call
Yeah,
that capitalism. We call that you get left behind.
something like that. But well, and I think you know, two tenets of our business model is one, we don't, it's not big bang. We typically don't uproot the utility service model and put this in. Typically, the utility is keeping some legacy channels in the mix for that purpose. But because of the underlying, the platform part that the customers don't see, what we're ensuring through our engine is that it's a single pane of glass. The customer is going to get the same information, whether it's in the call center, whether it's on our app, whether it's on the website, whether it's being provided through an agency. We didn't talk about that, but one of the things that happened during COVID was agencies, charitable organizations started creeping up and saying, I'm going to pay the utility bill for customers to alleviate the bad debt problem. And what we realized, it was a big opportunity for us because payment agencies didn't have a portal to pay bills on behalf of customers. So we provided that. And it was quick and it was easy. But it was only easy because our platform had the foundation for that in place.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Bob, we could speak for hours with you. We appreciate everything you all do every day, especially what you do all day. And look forward to hearing more about your move from New Jersey to back home in Louisiana. Travel well. You will be invited for sure and contacted to participate in a stellar fashion at the Digital 360 Summit 2022. And we thank you very much for your time today.
Looking forward. John, can I get a Go Tigers from you?
Habu Dang, Cole Koosh Koosh. Come on, Tigers. Push, push, push.
Yeah, well, I remember the other version of that.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Thank you. Thank you, Andres. Thank you, Llewellyn.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much indeed. Good luck.
Cheers.
John, take us away.
Well, we'll bring them on home, Riding on the city of New Orleans, Illinois Central, Monday morning rail. 15 cars and 15 restless passengers, 24 and 24 sacks of mail.
Bravo, bravo. Gentlemen, I've got an appointment. I have to go.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers. Thanks
Thank you.
again, Bob.